couldn't get your question.
You were a coach that you coached all kinds of teams. You had teams that...
Say it in English.
Enjoy your trip to work with lots of laughs, thanks to Defo and Lubie. Now on the Defo Show.
Welcome to the show on a Thursday morning. We're wearing out the professor here this week, and you can see the gradual deterioration of his physical appearance here. Although you look good.
You only left us one freaking intro. Like, what the hell? You're gone for a week. You want us to play that same Andy Reid clip for the entire week?
Lubie's inclined because I don't blame him. I put nothing on Lubie in terms of he's always been up to the task. The guy runs all over the place, but and with the many things he's doing, including the schlepping he has to do for the Mike Mayo Lunchbox show every day, and sometimes those guys are going at it twice in a day, which I find remarkable. Hard to do a day-night doubleheader, but he'll leave a clip there to the point where people are mouthing the words as the clip plays.
That makes sense.
Be up there for like 3-4 weeks at a time, and you're thinking, I can't stand this anymore. So you end up doing one of these where like I can't listen to my own opening. That's bad. Anyway, how are you, Professor? You were in action last night. Now, was there late night action? Because I actually caught the tail end, and I thought this was very exciting. I haven't really dove into too much NBA regular season basketball so far. The Heat season is not very compelling. When the most interesting story is, and I keep coming back to this, probably the most difficult place in the world to get rid of a stiff is in the NBA.
What do you mean by that? I mean, it's easy to get rid of them. You just, you won't get anything back.
Well, that's it. I mean, in this case, Jimmy Butler has become a complete stiff. Not only a complete stiff, but it would be addition by subtraction if they got rid of the guy, I think, which essentially they have. I mean, he's been suspended for the third time, this one indefinite, a minimum of 5 games. And you have to get the feeling that since that 5 games will evaporate the night before the trade deadline, that Pat Riley would like nothing better. I mean, like shaking dog shit off his shoes before he goes into the house there, the Riley Mansion.
I mean, it's
to have Jimmy Butler be somewhere else.
It's such an interesting phenomenon down here, centered around the cult of Pat Riley, which has translated to Eric Spoelstra. And look, there's no question. Both of them have been outstanding at their jobs, which certainly you and I would not have thought that first year with Eric Spoelstra, where he just looked baffled all the time with that.
You're wondering what Riley was doing there, if he was pulling a little bit of a Jerry Jones, although he's not inclined to do this sort of thing. But when you pull a guy that was shooting Nick Harrison's bar mitzvahs out of the film room there and at the video room, and the next thing you know, he's your head coach.
It's just an interesting, almost cult-like following down here. I feel like any other NBA city,
though, don't you? I mean, Riley.
I feel like any other NBA city, at least half the fans would be on the side of the star player. And down here at 0, it's all fuck Jimmy Butler, and he's done.
What is his beef?
I mean, what's get paid?
Except for the long-term contract, which you would have to say. I mean, any fan looking at this would say, "Do I really want to give Jimmy Butler 3 more years at $150 million.
I mean, but isn't that the thing in all sports? All these contracts these days, like, you're paying for at least a couple of years on the back end where the guy's just going to be totally shot.
Baseball,
and you're going to have to cut him or bench him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, when they gave Pujols a 10-year deal.
Well, what the hell is like Ohtani's is like 40 years or whatever. He's going to be 75 when
he's got a 10-year deal, and there are many of those out there now.
And he's going to be at that the what is it, the pachinko machine, that little weird thing the Japanese like to bet on, where the ball falls down like Plinko, and the Price is Right.
Oh,
like, who would have thought
would you
would be the most popular gambling game in a country?
Would you agree though that? I mean, Ohtani probably paid for himself already with the Dodgers, and especially their following in Japan, which was strong anyway, and the Asian population of Los Angeles. I mean,
no question. And they, went out and won one. So, like, sure, I get that aspect of it. But, like, he's, what, 28, 29 years old. He's already been injured, like, 5 times. There's no question. With the pitching and the batting thing, and he steals bases. I mean, he's an amazing player.
Yes,
but like, his body's clearly going to be shot by the end of that deal.
You would have to think so. I mean, he's had what, 2 Tommy Johns?
Yeah.
Wow. Is it 2 already?
Is it one or
Sure.
two? I think it's just
At
one.
least
of
one,
Tommy
yeah.
John, but he had
By
something
the way,
else.
what happened? Did Dr. James Andrews check out? This guy used to do every surgery, and
I
you
think
never
he's
hear
still
of him.
around.
He's still around?
I think he's like a consultant now. I think like you go and he tells you what you need done, and somebody else does well, you know what? We can actually get the inside dope on this because I know someone who works with a doctor who was part of the Dr. James Andrews clinic. Yeah, like I think it's pretty common in sports that you quarterbacks. I mean, you just accept that when the Jets gave Aaron Rodgers a deal, like you were accepting there's going to be trouble in the locker room because he's an insane person, and by the end of it, he's probably going to look like a shot fighter.
He does already in some ways, many ways.
Point. Yeah, I mean, and I think any other NBA city, at least half the fans would be on Jimmy Butler's side. I mean, because
the other thing that's in play there with the contracts is that, and we know this, that you're actually paying a guy for what he's done in the past, not necessarily projecting
100%
out to the future.
I mean, 100%. Again, we got an active one in the NFL. Saquon Barkley, a guy who's already had like 2 major injuries. The Giants let him go. He goes to the Eagles. He's everybody's favorite player now. But again, he's a running back. The last couple of years of his deal, he's probably going to be a complete bum. I mean, he's
looking to get 4 carries a game for 16.
Yeah, like that's the way running backs play out in the NFL. But now, because of him and because of Derrick Henry, who's like a model of either advanced Russian steroids or physiology, I don't know which it is. He may just be the biggest freak of all time. I'm not sure which it is.
I think the running backs coach with Derrick Henry is Victor Conti. I believe I saw him on the sideline. Yeah,
but people want to pay running backs all of a sudden again. Look, I'm not arguing either way because obviously, the running back position has shown new importance in the NFL. So maybe it's worth paying him and eating it at the end of the deal. But it's pretty well established that that's the pattern with running backs is that, they have a great first few years, you pay them, and then by the end of the contract, they're a walking corpse.
Look at McCaffrey.
Many miles. Yeah.
No way to have predicted that. I would say this, that there was a theory out there, and it was easy to subscribe to it, and I believe it was valid, that the running backs were largely interchangeable. And that was going around the league up until really the last couple of years. And Barkley, who knows? I mean, if he had stayed with the Giants, which many people felt that Joe Shane, we've been saying, how does he sleep at night after making a decision to keep Daniel Jones, maybe at the sake of being able to accommodate Saquon Barkley on the roster? But if Barkley's on the Giants this year, I don't know that anybody recognizes his greatness. Certainly not to the level that he's achieved behind the Philadelphia Eagles offensive line.
Anyway,
I mean, he doesn't get touched. I think you mentioned this the other day. He doesn't get touched till he's like 3 yards beyond the line of scrimmage, and then he makes one move, and if he gets in the clear, it's all over.
Anyway, but you look at the Miami Heat, we let Dwayne Wade walk to go be LeBron's pool boy for a couple of years. And then we bring him back when he's shot, basically, and build a whole team around him so he can have like a victory tour year with Miami. And then the last game, like he leaves early to go take a phone call from LeBron in the locker room and then comes back and you're like, oh yeah, well, but so again, there's like this almost cult-like following with Heat coaching and management, where whatever they say, the fans just instantly accept it and turn against the players, even though you could see on the court, like, okay, if your plan was this with Jimmy Butler all along, why haven't you been building up the roster to accommodate that? Because a blind man could see a team where, Tyler Hero is your number one isn't going to be good enough to, make any sort of substantial move into and in the playoffs.
Somewhat snookered, though, by previous maneuvers in terms of what maneuverability they had to try and put a team together, thinking that we're probably not going to have Jimmy Butler pass this year. And yet, I mean, you said it before the show. We were just talking briefly about some stuff that went on last night. And look, I mean, Adam Silver's now talking about knocking the quarters down to 10 minutes to try
what is with that guy?
Have players more involved in games and maybe less likely to skip games as star players. And Then they're also talking about a change of knocking, and I love this because of all of the different conditions that apply, but only awarding 2 free throws on a foul that occurs at the 3-point stripe.
I don't
Only,
hate that one as much, to be honest. I definitely like that better than I like the 10. Look, I mean,
except in the last 2 minutes, which
Adam Silver's had an interesting tenure in that, David Stern was just like the Ayatollah of the NBA for
Yes.
like 30 years. Like that was a law. And like Adam Stern has gone such the opposite way, trying to sort of being a player friendly commissioner. And, based on the television ratings, pretty much everything he's done has been a complete freaking disaster. And I get it. You have to deal with the players. You have to deal with modern athletes. But like, when did it become a thing that like star players we only need you like 60, 65 games out of 82. It's, it's fine. Once you
well, that'll never be addressed though, because we know why they play the 82 games. You would think, I mean, as you said, here was a relatively spectacular night on many fronts in the NBA. You, like me, among the biggest sports fans that you could find, and I'm sure that applies to the people in our viewing and listening audiences. Look, if you weren't a huge sports fan, you wouldn't be tuning into something like this. That being said, I was just very lucky to find the last quarter and change of the Golden State Oklahoma City game last night. And as I was saying to you, what impressed me, and maybe I don't know, is there just superior weed in the Silicon Valley? You would think possibly yes, but here's a 500 Golden State team that everybody's pointing to and saying, "Hey, they got to get some help for Steph," and the crowd is berserk. Now they weren't playing the number one team in the NBA at the time. I believe they might be in a dead heat with Cleveland after Cleveland pounded the Heat last night. But I would think, and granted, they were winning. They were down at halftime, and they reversed it in the third quarter. And the exchanges at the end of this game were as entertaining as anything I've seen in the NBA, especially if you were in the home crowd. But they were going nuts there. I mean, they absolutely love their Golden State Warriors, and I don't know that you find that is it. You don't get that kind of atmosphere all the time at the Kaseya Center with the Miami Heat, even though they're in a similar circumstance. That they're sitting there, I think now at 500, and probably clinging to one of the 10 positions, but probably 6 through 10 would be their best hope. In terms of the postseason. And you don't see,
I would
you
point
don't
at
see
it
that kind of excitement here anyway.
I would point at it and say that's another Adam Silver thing that has, largely failed, which is this whole, 8 wasn't quite enough spots for it, so now we're going to have the play-ins. And if you're 6 through 10, you got to play extra games to get – like the thought on the NBA was everybody makes the playoffs anyway, so – now you made it even bigger. I would point at look.
They probably should do that play-in for the 7th and 8th team.
I mean the in tournament, or what do they call it? The in-season tournament or whatever.
Brick.
Nobody cares.
No.
It's a disaster.
Yeah. It's actually
really,
a distraction, isn't it?
And has come to the point where I think most people realize, they just did this so they can break out another jersey and sell it to fans. Like that seems to be the whole function of the in-season tournament.
The original concept was to try and give more meaning to especially early season, regular season NBA games, but they're not fooling anybody, right?
Right.
As we were talking about yesterday in the great Andy's theory, you probably have cemented most of your sports beliefs by the time you're 6 years old. And you're not going to, especially the way it's conducted, it has no meaning whatsoever. I mean, you look at the Lakers winning the championship and proudly raising the banner into the rafters there, and you're thinking, well, what the fuck is that?
Again, they copied soccer. I mean, they thought, this is a big thing in soccer. Yeah, but they've been doing it for 50 years. I don't necessarily think the first time, it happened, it was that big a deal. And, tournaments are a soccer thing. That's what they like. The World Cup, the Euro,
they even have, like in wrestling, an intercontinental championship.
They have it for MLS, which nobody gives a shit about anyway. Like, Miami, whatever they are.
Except for one of your big fans, Jim Sarney. He
teams from Venezuela. I gotta say, that's one sport Have you ever watched an MLS game?
I have, and I'm. You know my opinion on soccer. I mean, it's just
Right. You don't love soccer to begin with, and
Right.
I don't either.
I think it's
But
the dumbest fucking game I've ever seen.
when I watch the EPL or the La Liga, and it's some of the best athletes in the world,
They're great,
and
no
they're
doubt.
so skilled. I'm not going to ever love it, but I can get into that. But then I watch the MLS, and it's like, even with Messi and these guys, it's like watching eighth graders.
A
play.
Little League,
Like,
yes.
Yeah, it's pathetic. And honestly, like,
It's like we're in Williamsport for the Little League World Series, and even those players are at a higher level.
the Little League
Baseball,
World Series
man,
is
the
a
MLS.
good comparison because it's all dudes who are like either too old or too slow or too small.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Like, okay, the big European leagues, like all the strikers look like Ronaldo. They're like 6'3". They can dunk a basketball standing straight. They, amazing speed, all this. And then you watch like the best scorers in the MLS, and they're like 5'2" and 130 pounds. Like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
No wonder this dude couldn't make it over there. It's because he's a midget.
Well, just look at what Messi was doing. I mean, he was destroying these guys with 5 goals a night. You would have thought he was outscoring Ovechkin and Wayne Gretzky in terms of goals, and you don't see that. If he was playing in these high-level European leagues, he may be relegated. I don't know that he would be like anywhere near like approaching the second tier, but he certainly
I don't
wouldn't
know
have
where
been
he would be if
he
he.
did.
I mean, but this is the new thing, right? Like, if you're good and you get old, you either come to the MLS and you get all the money in the world, or you go to Saudi Arabia and you get an extra pile of all the money in the world.
Or, it's like Warren Cromartie going to Japan after, his career, or any of these ball players that went to Japan before. And maybe Japan's catching up because of the number of people they're sending at high levels of desire by these Major League Baseball teams. But that's like 1 or 2 guys every year. And they would go to Japan and hit like 340 for a couple
But I think we found out over time that, no, it's not every guy in Japan, but like the top 10 guys or whatever in Japan.
probably
We're
could play.
all, relatively competitive
Yes.
with, any star in Major League Baseball. Whereas the case is, the dudes in the MLS, the ones that are good are like 40, and everybody else, just physically incapable of playing at a higher level.
Well, and if you
Anyway.
look at the direction of the traffic, I mean, you have most of these European stars, they end up at the end of their career in the MLS. Whereas, I mean, George Best, right? I mean, you're thinking back to the NASL, and you would get these broken down guys in their 40s that could barely move anymore to a large extent, maybe less so than you see in the MLS.
Right.
But rarely do you see somebody plucking a guy out of the MLS and putting him on one of these high-level
Never.
European teams.
Never. I mean, like Beckham at the very end, I think went back to Rome. Played
As
the
a token
Italian
gesture, probably, yeah.
one. But yeah, again, overall,
It's a stupid game. You know this. Pick up
It
the
is a
fucking
stupid
ball and throw it already. Just catch it. Do something.
But even if you don't
throwing
think
your
it's-
fucking head, but
here's the thing, though. Even if you don't think it's a stupid game,
stupid game. The
like
game.
I
the
defy
ethics of the
anybody,
game is stupid.
Sarny, no matter how big a fan you are, to watch like an English Premier League game and watch an MLS game and try to tell me it's the same thing. It's not even remotely close to this.
No. So like watching what is it? The G League now. I always think of it as the CBA.
But it's not the G League because those are mostly young dudes who are physically. It's like the NBA if everybody was Muggsy Bogues. Like, it's like the NBA if you said, but we're capping the height limit at 5'8". Nobody else, nobody over 5'8" can play in this league.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you'd get some exciting moments because like Muggsy Bogues was an exciting player, but not if there's a whole court of them.
No, I mean, look, if you don't like the game to begin with, which, as I said, I think it was devised by a mutant society that had no arms. I mean, there's no other justification for what they do. Now, I understand too. You don't need and you're looking at some of these countries that produce top soccer players, where the game is the number one sport. Europe is a little less understandable in South America. But what do you need to play this stupid game? Nothing.
Right. You need a ball in the net.
And
You
you
don't
don't,
really
even
need
need
that.
a net, right? Because the entire length of the baseline essentially is the goal.
Yeah.
So you just need to maybe make some kind of parameter about the height
Right.
of the kick, but
Can't
other
go
than
higher
that,
than this spot on the wall.
and think about that for a second. Now you've been you've teed off on this one. I mean the goal is the size of the Grand fucking Canyon, and they can't score 3 goals a game. It's incredible. Oh, you got one guy, the goalie makes 2 saves, and all of a sudden he's the
It's
beast.
just the greatest performance I've ever seen.
And they're not even like great saves or anything. I mean, the guy kicks one, it hits him in the chest and bounces out. And then I love the fact that you're waving everybody down the field while the ball just sits there, and the minutes are ticking off the clock, and then you don't know when the fucking game ends. I mean, there's so many stupid aspects to it.
It's true.
But people are betting their brains out on this, Professor. I don't know.
Americans even.
Yeah, I mean, and they're betting like 20-game parlays where they bet all draws, hoping to cash that one $1 trillion ticket. I've seen people do this. They show them. You know how it is now, where it used to annoy the fuck out of me when somebody would
It
come up
still
to you
annoys me.
at the track and say, "Oh my God, you believe this? I left out the 2." And it's like,
Yeah.
take those losing tickets and shove them up your ass. I got plenty of them on my own, right? I have a whole stack. I leave them sitting right here. I just let them pile up, so I can remind myself that, by the way, you've lost most of these bets, DeForest. But now somebody's always shoving their phone in your face
Oh God.
and going, "Hey, look at that! I had a 19 parlay and I hit 8 of them, and then I lost a lot. Can you believe this shit?" And especially the soccer fans. I mean, they must need some kind of validation from somebody that what they're doing is okay.
I mean, I don't know that it's mostly
parlays,
soccer
and they're always ridiculous. It never involves less than 20 teams.
I don't know. It's mostly soccer fans. I think I have a ton of people with football doing this with the player prop shit. They come up to us and say, "Hey, look, I had an 11 team, but 11.
Oh, you want to just take their phone and fire it in the ocean?
I had an 11 play parlay in the Eagles Commanders game, and I won 10 of them. And the one I lost was whether the final score would be odd or even numbers. Like, what the hell are you? How would you possibly predict that?
When will the entire world be drained of all of its cash, and it'll all be in the possession of whoever?
I'd say sometime in the next 4 years.
This can't go on forever, can it, Professor? I mean, it used to be, it was sort of a clandestine thing. Well, I had a couple of bets on the game, and you didn't want anybody to know. And
Well,
now,
let me ask, how much of this is fallout from the last financial crisis, where everybody can't be, and to some degree from the whole GameStop thing, where everybody is convinced that investing is a rigged game. And to some degree, it very obviously is a rigged game, that the billionaires are going to profit more and the guys who run Wall Street are going to profit more. So people nowadays view various form of gambling, whether it's cryptocurrency, whether it's just out and out sports gambling or whatever, as quote unquote investments, as opposed to buying a few shares of this and buying,
which is a poor way to view gambling. That's for sure.
Letting it build up over time. I mean, I think a lot of things just in terms of our societal makeup have changed. And there's a lot of, I think cryptocurrencies had a lot to do with that, because I know so many people, they're not even doing Bitcoin, which, now has some legitimacy to it and some market stabilization to it. They're doing these fucking meme coins.
Well, look, Trump's just blowing out. He buried everybody.
Right. Which are they're parlays. And, and like 99% of them at the end, whoever the coin is named after sells all theirs. And, it's called a rug pull. And then the value of it drops 99%.
A little pump and dump.
Yeah. I mean, so tell me how that's different than, the Wolf of Wall Street crap. I mean, I'll
give you a good one here. And this is true. All right. So does Greenlight Ventures I've talked to you about?
Yes.
All right, one of their main things that they're trying to establish is this artificial intelligence, and I believe it's called arbitrage betting. I don't know if you're familiar with this, but anyway, it's a system where with your artificial intelligence, they find you. You have to have like a zillion accounts to make this work, right? You have to pretty much be on every betting app that you can find,
right?
Sign up for it. And they will find spots where if you bet both sides, all right, you cannot lose.
You're trying to catch a middle.
You are catching a middle, and they point this out to you. So you say your average bet is $100. If one side comes in, you might make $30 on the 100. If the other side comes in, the longer shot, you might make $50 on the 100. and you're guaranteed to win. You can't lose if you can follow the system. Now you have to be in a position to make these bets very quickly, and the artificial intelligence, obviously makes it a lot easier to find, as opposed to a guy, like Ace Rothstein with a magnifying
Right.
glass in his apartment in San Diego, going, "Hey,
Or like the old days where you get on the phone and call 50 guys and see where
Right.
the lines were here, and here.
So you're guaranteed you cannot lose if you follow. If this is all you did, you would grind out some kind of a profit, which, surprisingly, I mean, as many spectacular wagers as you've made, Lubie characterized you as sort of a guy that's more than content philosophically to grind out a profit, that you would rather win than lose. Like most of us who are fueled by self-sabotage all the way, as you know, I will find any way I can to fuck up a bet. But and you might be frozen on me there, Professor. Are you?
Oh, I'm right here.
Oh, okay. You're there.
Paying attention to the story.
Okay, so the bottom line is this, and my theory is the only reason that this won't be all the rage, and that I won't fatten my bankroll significantly with some get-out money with Greenlight Ventures, is because people don't necessarily want to do that. It's
Nobody
boring.
wants to grind.
They would much rather be dead wrong and cry about losing with the Chiefs in the Super Bowl and see thousands of dollars go up in smoke than go ahead and gamble as an investment, as you pointed out, and actually make an investment, right?
Okay,
If somebody
I was
offering you
looking at the
30%
data. I was
you would take it.
I was looking at the data on the apps last year, and I think it was just FanDuel and DraftKings, which are two far and away the two largest. And something like 87% of their profits were parlay based,
Yes.
and 62%
Why are you looking at me?
were parlay based with more than two pieces to the parlay,
Sure.
multiple way parlays. Which
Yeah.
pretty much tells you that, okay, number one, that's where the profits are. Tells you they're losing propositions. But everybody I know does this crap. Like
Everybody.
nobody single
Right.
bet. Like and particularly demographically, if you took people under probably 50, but most likely particularly under 40, nobody bets straight. And nobody really even bets on outcomes anymore. It's all this player prop crap and all the, will the kicker, will there be more than 2.5 field goals and this and that and the other? Then just impossible to predict shit.
Yes.
But that's all the rage. And look, and I don't know what his promo deal. We have a guy in town, Andy Slater, who like immediately, like 3 seconds after Hard Rock Open, supposedly hit like this 6-leg, will they score a touchdown parlay, and then started putting them out every weekend. Oh, I've got a eight leg parlay here with this person to score a touchdown and this person to go over 62.5 yards and this guy to go under 8 tackles. And it's what they want, and it's playing into the book's hands. That it's but everybody is treating everything like it's the freaking lottery. And I don't have a problem with the lottery. When Mega Millions or Powerball gets up there, I go and spend my 10 or 20 bucks on the tickets too. Who never know, it might be your lucky night.
Could be your day.
Yeah, philosophically, in terms of sports, I don't buy into it at all.
No, it's crazy. I was laughing because my son, who's not a huge bettor but loves sports, so he'll throw a little taste here and there just to have some action, and he's also inclined to do only prop bets.
Right.
And it's funny too because when we're doing the Bury Your Bookie show, we tend to concentrate on sides and totals, and sometimes we'll throw a prop bet in there, but
you're not speaking to the audience.
Myself, I'm in the minority here, like a very small minority of people that actually give a shit about that. So,
I think honestly, it plays into what we're seeing in the handicapping industry too, in terms of again the Instagram modification of the gambling industry. Because if you're giving out an 8-leg parlay, 7 of which are player props, well, anybody who does that is full of shit. So it might as well be a hot chick. Like you might as well get something to look at while you're processing these picks, because I'm sorry, anybody who's doing like a 5, 6, 7 team or 7 prop parlay where it's like who's going to score a touchdown and who's going to do this and there's no logistical way you can. I don't care what your computer, the other one. I have an algorithm. My
I have
algorithm
no idea.
says
Sure.
this is the week. Travis Kelce has 2 touchdowns. If you're doing the player prop crap, you're not handicapping. You're guessing.
Right.
Like you don't have you could say, oh, well, Detroit is 29th against defense against tight ends, but or whatever. So this must be the way that the Bears tight end has a touchdown. Really? I mean,
how do you know? My favorite one is who's going to score the first touchdown.
Right.
You don't know who's going to get the ball first, number one.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, we have no idea what that possession is going to look like. And number three, who the hell knows? There's a 50% chance that the guy that you picked is not on the team that scores first.
Just bet on the fucking coin flip.
Right.
It's the same bet.
At least you have a 50-50 chance there, but you're not getting you're getting minus 110 on the odds. But it's very strange how this has changed. I'm thinking America and certainly the rest of the world would be in conjunction with this in all likelihood. It's only a matter of time before nobody has any money anymore.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's the whole thing.
My son actually had one. I was stunned. It was a Dolphin game near the end of the season. Raheem Mostert had been coming off an injury and hadn't been really doing much of anything in the week or so that he was back. And he has a prop bet that he had included in one of his parlays, Raheem Mostert under 9 yards rushing in the game. And I'm thinking, the guy essentially has to not play at all for you to hit that. And sure enough, he was under 9 yards at that particular ballgame.
There's a girl on Twitter, and I will not mention her name, but she's one of the biggest gambling influencers on Twitter. And I noticed her, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago because she's really good looking. But literally at the time, her big thing, it was NBA, and she was betting over under on assists with backup power forwards and centers. And the one that caught my mind is at the time, Precious Achua, who had been a Heat guy, and I knew the name because it was a backup power forward for the Toronto Raptors, and he was getting like 6 or 7 minutes a game. And like twice a week, she was going over half an assist for Precious Achua. It's like, you don't know if the guy's going to effing play because he certainly doesn't play every game.
Sure.
You have no idea if he plays, if he's going to get more than a minute and a half. And is he going to wind up in a situation where he gets an assist because, he does like a touch pass and the center catches it and like you have no idea. There's no way you could possibly handicap this particular result, and you're throwing it out there like twice a week. But people would find it. So he only has to have 1 assist. Well, yeah, but he only gets an assist every 3 games. So what? What the hell? And then I think this honestly should have peaked with Michael Porter's brother Jonte, who was a guy getting like 2 minutes a game for the Nuggets, or maybe it was 8 minutes a game or whatever the hell it was. And it turns out was faking injuries to get off the court. Yeah. So he would go under those. Like that should have made it clear to you just how fragile this ecosystem that you're participating in.
Well, and apparently he was also alerting other people to the fact that he was going to tank it.
Yeah.
What was he with the Raptors? Michael Porter's.
I don't remember. Yeah. But again, well, number one, if you're going to run a scam, of course you're going to let other people know about it. So you win the bets that way.
Sure.
But I just think again in sports where we basically never have a legitimate point scandal, particularly at the professional level, like point shaving scandal. Like there's one in college, and it's usually in college basketball.
Like Temple.
Like every 5 or 6 years, it's again. Yes, I mean, before the Temple one last year, which probably did happen. It hasn't gone through the legal system yet, but it probably happened. Before that, the last one I remember was the Arizona State thing, and that was like 20 years earlier. Before that, it was the Boston College football thing, which was like 1 game. Was it Don King's son? Somebody famous's son was involved, and that was like 10 years before that. And then you got to go all the way back to Henry freaking Hill. And the Boston College scandal before that, and that was like in the 70s. But now all of a sudden, because of all these props, it's showing up in the freaking NBA, and it's showing up in the stupidest way possible. It's showing up with the 12th man on the bench faking injuries, so he goes under the 1.5 point performance. And
it's crazy. Yeah.
That should tell you how crazy.
And people are embracing this. That's a funny thing. All of these hot babes. I mean, I keep coming back to this. I can't escape this. When have you ever gone into a race book or a sports book?
Never.
And just seen a ton of really sharp looking women just sending it in and then speaking the language and talking to you as if they were some kind of expert, where you, who've been betting your entire life, like a lot of us, or at least following it to some level, and know all the lingo, and you're thinking, man, that woman is sharp.
Okay, any sports book you go to in Vegas,
It's all decrepit losers.
the waitresses will be good looking.
Yes, for the most part.
Might be, some cashiers who are good looking once or twice.
Very rare.
Nobody walking around actually doing this is a good looking woman ever.
Unless they're on their way to the nightclub, which is just off to the side at Caesar's Palace.
Yeah, but then they're not in the book.
Exactly.
They're not there for that.
Yeah. You rarely see those women that are going to wait online to get into like some Club Live replica.
Right.
I forget the name of the club that's at Caesar's Palace, but the line's out the fucking door to get in there. All babes and, sharp looking people. And you rarely see them hovering around the windows there with a racing form. Come on, at 5.
No, ever.
Or
look,
with
you
tickets
see-
on
you
the
see more-
Celtics to win
You
the
see
championship.
more at horse racing than you do in the sports book, but sports book,
The lowest form of degeneracy, usually.
like it's,
Well, I mean, one of my favorites too is, and I knew this woman a little bit when she was here, and I was just breaking in the radio at of all places, the Lapa Nation, and that's Anita Marks, who I believe got her start on 1400, which, as you said, when we were at 1470, it was just to the left of Radio Haiti. I think 1400, the light bulb, as it was fondly known by the great Neil Rogers, probably was right on the destination of Radio Haiti. I think they blended signals somehow.
and she got her start. She got her actual start playing in the lingerie football league or
She
something.
was in
like
that. Okay, so she had some kind of a sporting background, at least
Right.
at some level. But when did she become a gambling expert? Where ESPN is throwing her and this Aaron Dolan, who fits the bill as the hot babe, because all you know.
See, now we're becoming the guys who just hate women in sports, and I don't want to do that.
No,
There's-
it's fine. But where did this come from?
But yeah, again, and my favorite is they all do it. The shot where they're
You're
by the
expecting a guy like
pool,
Mark Lawrence or something.
they're by the pool in their bikinis with like a notepad and a big pen, and like, oh, I'm putting the work in. I'm doing my handicap. No, you're tanning. Come on, get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, you're more inclined to find this stuff because you're more of a follower of social media.
I'm like, who does their handicapping on a notepad with a pen anymore? I mean, it's like, okay, so like it's only hot 25-year-old babes and guys collecting Social Security. Those are the only people
There you
who
go.
still handicapped that way.
Thank God that check comes every month.
Like, come and
Just keep it intact there, Donnie boy. Don't fuck me on my money. That's it's always a nice thing to have land in your bank account the second Wednesday of every month. All right, we're going to come back with more here, and there's a lot to talk about. I wanted to pick your brain on a couple of things
Okay.
that are going on that involve college football, especially a couple of players. And then I like redemption stories. So
Okay.
I believe while the focus, the spotlight, will be very much on Saquon Barkley, and rightfully so, or Jalen Hurts, and maybe even Sirianni in the week leading up to the Super Bowl. I was happy to see a story about this guy who definitely redeemed himself and brought his career back from the grave this year with the Philadelphia Eagles. So we'll come back with that and more in a moment here on the Defo Show. The professor doing an admirable job of filling in. And I don't know, are you filling in? Is Lubie coming back? Do we know?
I wouldn't come back. I mean, I don't trust me. I don't want to do this one more day than this waking up at 7:00 shit is not.
But that's
good.
not. It's not your thing. Lubie's kind of conditioned to it. Like,
But if I were Lubie, would I come back? Hell no. You're in Barcelona on a free
Barcelona
vacation
right now with babes, unbelievable.
Right.
All right, we're coming back with more in a moment. Now that
The time.
it's 8:40.
Hey folks, Tony Segreto here. Let me ask you a question. What do you look for when you go out to eat? Good food, obviously, friendly atmosphere, not too loud, but good energy, reasonable prices, and a place where you feel comfortable. All those ingredients, no pun meant there, are hard to find unless you're talking about the Texas Roadhouse. You see, they encompass all of those attributes. Really, really good food, amazing atmosphere, good for a family, good for a date, or just a night out for yourself, and prices that will make you extremely happy. Their ribs unmatched. Steaks hand cut every day. Everything, and I mean everything, is made on site, including their incredible bread. It's the one day, folks, that you can forget about low-carb diets. Trust me when I tell you, Texas Roadhouse, your restaurant, your destination when you say, where should we go and eat tonight?
From the newly renovated sports bar to the beautiful bayside views captured at the Tiki Bar, Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill has it all. Located at mile marker 104, the Big Chill also offers waterfront dining while experiencing breathtaking sunset views of the Florida Keys. It's simply the hottest spot in the Keys to cool off. That's Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill at mile marker 104 in Key Largo. For more information, call today at 305-453-9066.
Recently, we realized it's not just hurricane season that can hurt us. Any time of year, things can happen to your home or business. And the insurance company can be your friend, but they also can be your enemy. Horizon Public Adjusters, Justina Testa, are here for you to help this process go so much easier. Before you call the insurance company, call Horizon Public Adjusters and Justina Testa at 954-809-8752. Would you go into court without an attorney? So why would you go up against an insurance company without Horizon Public Adjusters and Justina Testa? 7 to 10 times more money recovered with a public adjuster than if you went on your own. If there's no recovery, there's no fee. Give them a call at 954-809-8752. Why go up against insurance companies alone when you can have Horizon Public Adjusters?
All right, well, welcome back to the show. Those shots of Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill. You were there, Professor, a couple of times, right? Is our man CJ?
He is. He's running the sports bar now.
Oh yeah, he's running the sports bar. How's that going? I know they revamped the whole thing, the sports bar, and made it into somewhat.
I mean, last I heard, it's going, like grease lightning. Like who wouldn't want to go down and have a couple beers, watch some games?
Yesterday and today would have been the day to be
Talk
there.
about babes at the pool, right? Like everybody in the Keys comes to that pool, which is, kind of, great for business, but, a little bit too much of a crowd for me. But it's like spring freaking break every day out there.
Oh, it's great though. I mean, they have the poolside service is outstanding. Sometimes you could sit in the pool until you turn into a prune and not get somebody to come over and ask if you need a drink or a refill or something. But no, they're really, really on top of things there, and great food and drink, a lot of innovative stuff. But the atmosphere and the scene. And yesterday was a rough one. I'm looking very much forward to this because there is no more frustrating experience than getting a new phone, which I finally did here.
Nice.
I was in such agony trying to. This phone I had before was right out of the Stone Age, I believe, and it was becoming virtually unmanageable and unworkable. And so I've been looking to upgrade a little bit, although I don't know that it's an upgrade. It is in the sense that it works better, although I haven't figured everything out. And then on top of that, it's like 10 pounds lighter. It was kind of like carrying around one of the tablets of the 10 Commandments, this other cell phone that I had, which, and you could definitely have gotten some kind of carpal tunnel from trying to flick things to get it to the point where you can finally, I want to just fucking Google something. But we were lucky. We were the only people in the store at the time. So 3 people jumped right on top of us. And it still took like an hour and a half to get the hell out of there by the time they made all the transitions. But I felt badly for the people that were lining up just after we got in there. And that took me off of the beach to have to go and do this on what was an otherwise spectacular day. So today's going to be another one. It'll be a good day to get down there, no doubt, to Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill. All right, where do you stand on this, Professor? You're our college football expert, of course, and I don't know anybody that follows the game more closely than you do. There may be, people there that spend their entire 24 hours looking at it, but and I'm trying to figure this out because I was reading a story about Shedeur Sanders.
Okay.
All right. Now, is it likely, in your opinion, that the 1-2 picks in the upcoming draft are Cam Ward and then Shedeur Sanders?
I would say less than a 10% chance.
Oh, okay. So how do you see that shaking out?
It looks like the Titans are reasonably locked in on Ward at this point in the process. But again, a lot can happen between now and draft day in terms of trades, in terms of, someone wanting to move up.
If you were the Titans, would you take him gladly at number 1? to salvage what right now is a hope.
No, and I'm a Cam Ward fan, but
Okay.
I feel like he is the guy who needs to go somewhere and sit for a year. And
That doesn't happen anymore.
he has, and that does not happen with top picks anymore.
No.
Like if you are drafted number 1, you were expected to be a day 1 starter. I think if he goes to Tennessee, where there are structurally just a lot of problems with that football team that a quarterback is not going to solve, that it's going to be a rough go for a year or two while he adjusts his personal style. Look, we're all big Cam Ward. He holds the ball forever.
Yes.
In the NFL, that is not a good habit.
Cannot do it.
As great an athlete as he is, and he is a spectacular athlete, as great an arm as he has, and he has a spectacular arm, he's got some habits that are going to have to be really remade. He reminds me a lot of Jordan Love. The Packers were in a fortunate situation where they could bring Love and let him sit for a couple of years and let him learn and adjust the NFL. I think that would be the optimal situation for Cam Ward. But where he's going to go in the draft, no. Shedeur Sanders, on the other hand, mostly what I see on him is the questions people are coming. I think, look, he's got the same habit of he holds the ball forever. He tends to lock in on his first read, which at Colorado was fine because your first read were all sorts of dudes who could just fly down the field. And his arm for the NFL level, I'm not going to say he has a weak arm, he has a pop gun arm, but he does not have a strong arm. If he were to be installed on day 1, he would be probably in the bottom thirds in terms of just raw ability to spin the ball. And then, I don't want to call it off the field stuff. There's some questions about him as a leader, which I think are perfectly valid. You go back to that Nebraska game where, yes, he got the holy shit beaten out of him, but you don't leave the game 4 minutes early without your teammates. I think that's not a natural leadership. And he's only played for his father, which, again, there were some issues with guys who left Colorado saying all the NIL went to the Sanders family one way or the other.
Why isn't that a surprise? I'll say this, though, for Shedeur Sanders. Anytime I've seen him in interviews, he seems to be just as well composed and
he's a sharp kid.
Humble an individual, says all the right things and appears to mean them. So I even though I know, especially from working with Lubie, I mean, he despises Deion Sanders. I don't. I'm not a huge fan of Sanders because there's appears to be a very phony element to him. And I hated him ever since he dumped that drink, the beer on top of Tim McCarver's head. I was a big fan of when he was a Cardinal, especially. But he seems very well composed, Shedeur Sanders, to me.
Anyway, I would say right at the moment, Shedeur Sanders will not be the second quarterback off the board. Jackson Dart is flying up teams' boards, and with understandable reasons. He's a strong-arm kid, and he's a good athlete, although I think he, too, coming out of Lane Kiffin offensive style, will have some big adjustments in the NFL. But I will say, what is now January 30th, my prediction will be Jackson Dart, not Shedeur Sanders, will be the second quarterback off the board in this draft.
Okay. All right. So,
and for those who haven't watched the film I have from the Shrine game, the other Sanders brother, Shiloh, will be undrafted. Like, I don't know if you've watched any of these clips.
Oh, no.
He can't cover anybody.
It's not a glowing recommendation for a guy who's going to try.
Like the most opposite of his father he could be. He is a vicious hitter.
Yes.
Who can't cover. Like, honestly, I get, if I'm Deion, I am now starting to look at the mailman and say, like, was something going on in the Shiloh days. Because, like, as a player, he could not be more opposite than his dad, who didn't like to hit anybody, did not like contact, but, if not the greatest single cover guy of all time, on the very, very short list of it.
One of Joe Douglas, former GM of the New York Jets' worst nightmares was drafting Mekhi Becton.
Mackay.
Yeah. And when Becton was taken, I believe he was chosen before Tristan Wirfs.
He was.
So some people thought could even be the number 1 overall pick. He was that dominant of an offensive lineman in college, and he's acquitted himself extremely well by, a multiple Pro Bowl selection, and certainly has been a huge asset. When he's in the lineup for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they're a different offensive line. Becton, you would have to qualify a professor when he was with the Jets, and he was unsigned as recently as April. He couldn't have been any bigger of a bust, could he? As a top level first round pick, Mickey Becton, and or is it Mackay? Is that the
It's
correct
Mackay, yeah.
pronunciation? Okay, I always called him Mickey. And sure enough, I mean, if you watched his play with the Philadelphia Eagles this year, now they moved him from tackle. I believe he started out with the Jets as a left tackle. Then they moved him to the right side because he couldn't handle the left at the level that you have to be an NFL quarterback for or offensive lineman for a right-handed quarterback. And finally, now the Philadelphia Eagles, who have this guy, is his name Stoutman? The offensive line coach for the Philadelphia Eagles is supposed to be like a guru offensive line coach, and you could make that case that he definitively is based on the way the Eagles block, which is a large reason. I had a conversation with a good friend of ours who's a handicapper on Bury Your Bookie yesterday, and he was saying that he buys in 1,000% to the Eagles being the better team that's going into this upcoming Super Bowl in New Orleans, and offensive line play would have to be something that you pointed to. Becton, I mean, what a redemption story this year. And a couple of times I've zeroed in on him. If you look at some of these long runs that have been broken off by Saquon Barkley, Becton pancakes the guy that he's going up against. And it's an amazing story because he appeared to be somewhat unmotivated, certainly injury prone. And you would put him, I don't know that he was Jamarcus Russell, but as a high draft pick was among the biggest.
I mean, come on now. Jamarcus Russell. Wow.
Who was the
That's
guy,
a little
the
rough.
steroid guy that was picked third overall?
Tony Mandrich.
Tony Mandrich, yeah.
More similar, except without the steroids.
Yeah. Well, you can't compare an offensive lineman to a quarterback as a bust, though.
Okay.
But, I mean, it's a great story and one I think is worthy of a lot of attention. With the journalists or sports reporters, observers, analysts that are going to have to fill a lot of time. I mean, that was as surprising a turnaround as I've seen for an athlete, and I always love that when that happens.
It's an interesting story. I just went back and looked at it. He did go 2 picks before Wirfs.
That was the 2020 draft, which, of course, was dominated by the quarterback class. Still controversial down here. When the Dolphins took Tua, pick ahead of Justin Herbert.
Where do you stand on that one right now?
Yeah.
Out even Steven, maybe?
About there. I mean, look, as many, for whatever reason that the media wants to praise Justin Herbert, he doesn't really have any more accomplishments than Tua has. And now, between the choke a couple of years ago in the playoffs against Jacksonville, where they were up, 3 or 4 touchdowns and managed to blow the game, and then his just absolutely rotten performance against Houston. Like, if you're going to accuse Tua of not winning the big games, I guess you got to throw that at Justin Herbert right at the moment too, because he did not acquit himself well in the playoffs this year. Becton did, for those some background in the draft, everybody expected Wirfs to be the first offensive tackle off the board. The Giants at number 4 took a kid named Andrew Thomas out of Georgia, who was considered like a bottom of the first round pick. He was not considered anywhere near the top. And I think that sort of sent the people who were drafting offensive linemen into, okay, well, what do the Giants know about Wirfs that we don't know kind of situation. Becton, who was an amazing physical prospect whose college tape did not amount. He very much reminiscent of, for Miami Hurricanes fans who remember, Bryant McKinney. Very similar to that. McKinney was 6'8", Becton was 6'7". McKinney was like 350. Becton was like 360, but had good feet for a dude that size, which, if you're 6'7", 360 and you can walk, I think qualify as having good feet.
Yeah.
Went to the Jets. Found out when he showed up to camp, he was injured in college and it was undiagnosed. Had an injury-riddled season in 2022 as well. And 2023 did not play well. I would say a few things. Number one, credit to Philadelphia and their line coach for moving him to guard, because almost nobody is going to move a guy 6'7" to the guard position. Just physically, naturally, it's not a fit. Again, 6'7" dude that a quarterback has to look past every time. There's a reason, the super tall guys are usually tackles on the outside, not interfering with middle of the field visions. And super, dudes more like 6'2", 6'3", play guard and center.
Guys built like a fire hydrant.
Easier to see over them.
Yeah.
The other thing, and I think is the most important thing, is to play either side of the line of scrimmage in the NFL and play it well. The amount of want to in you has to be through the roof, because it's one of those things. If you're playing defensive line, you're a great pass rusher, for example, like you can make that effort on one play where you like just blow past your guy. But the bad news is it's a bubble screen to the other side. So you're still not within 3 steps of the quarterback.
Right.
If you're Becton and you just pancake your dude, but a guy on the outside blows his block, it's still a 5-yard loss on the, read option. So you have to have that desire. And it's the most, particularly when it comes to line, the most unhandicappable thing in the NFL draft is how much desire a guy. I have a good friend, Brian, who used to say to me, and I never thought about this. He was like, the one rule I believe in the NFL draft is never take pass rushers who were in junior college. And I was like, why? And, because there's been a lot of college stars who came out of but they almost all flop in the NFL. And he's like, it indicates that they're not willing to put the work in. They're not going to be that every down guy, because when they were in high school, they wouldn't put the work in academically, and they ended up in freaking junior college. They could always rush the passer, but just it wasn't there in every aspect of their life. And you have to be that relentless guy who's going to do it play after play after play through physically the most difficult circumstance. Like, name something more difficult than if you're a professional guard like Becton is, and you have to get a rub on the nose tackle, and then you got to get 5 yards downfield, chase down a guy who's 50 pounds lighter than you and a linebacker, but still built like a Volkswagen and strong as hell, and get on him. If you have to do that rub block, that if you're a guard, you have to do half the time in the NFL, and you have to do that 60 times a game. And Becton, I don't think, was ever going to find that with the Jets because of the disappointments, because of the injuries. I think he got his back to a wall, and he found his want to in Philadelphia. And yeah, I'm happy for him too. I think it is a great redemption story, and one you almost never see in the NFL. Sometimes the left tackle to right tackle thing works, but to be a tackle and then slide inside, if you don't do it on day one in the NFL, it almost never actually works out.
When they do the ISO shots of him, it's pretty incredible what he's been able to do.
Well, he was always a physical marvel, right?
Yeah.
Like, you don't see dudes that tall and that big, out in the wild. Like NFL offensive linemen are just genetically a different. Like, you see these guys, and you're like, how did you not kill your mom coming out? Like, you are. we used to talk about it when we were doing the Marvin Jones show, right? Yeah. And Marvin, by NFL standards, was a big linebacker for his day, but by modern NFL standards, I mean, look, I'm a big fat dude. I am a wide guy, right? Marvin weighed less than me, and Marvin's shoulders were like here on me. Like, these dudes in the NFL, particularly the offensive linemen, we talk about it all the time. It's a perfect example, actually, now that I think about it. When you watch these minor league football games, and with the Rock being involved with the whatever it is, it's not the XFL anymore, or is it the XFL? Whatever the hell it's called, right? We used to call these minor league games, which was like the lowest level of minor league.
Yes.
With what was his name? I don't remember. Anyway, it was one of those minor leagues. Like 3 people showed up to games. It was sad, but there were corners and wide receivers and linebackers and pass rushers, all of whom were like this close to be like. If you just watch these dudes play, you were like, how is this guy not in the NFL?
Sure.
Like, a couple of them, actually, one corner and one wide receiver actually got signed to the Dolphins practice. So I'll tell you, there were not a single offensive lineman in the entire league who could block. Like, everybody.
That was your theory as to why the play was so lame.
And you see it in the XFL, right? You see dudes signed out of that league at every position, even quarterback, but never offensive line. Everybody who is physically capable of playing offensive line in the NFL is already in the NFL. It is, I think, in terms of just going out on the street and finding dudes, the single most difficult position to find. The combination of quickness and size is unfathomable. And then, again, you watch teams play. You watch, the Chiefs play with Spagnuolo, who will blitz from off the bench, who will blitz, will hide a dude behind the goalpost and then run him up to the line. Like, people don't realize mentally to do that well is an incredible feat to decide in half a second that I'm blocking this dude who's 100 pounds less than me and runs a 4.4, who's trying to kill my quarterback and is sneaking around from a weird angle, and to be able to adjust to that and block a guy, that is like the mental process that takes compares to anything a quarterback does getting through progressions.
Yeah, it's nice to see him pick that up. Yeah, you were right. Those minor leagues always bereft of offensive line talent. And just ask Chris Greer how difficult it is to pick up guys at a gas station and insert them into your offensive line and not get your quarterback killed. So, because he was doing that a couple of years ago in the Flores seasons when they were doing everything in desperation to lose every game. And literally, I mean, a guy would deliver a package to Chris Greer's house, and next thing you know, he's wearing number 87 and he's starting somewhere. But yeah, I mean, that's a great story, and I'm sure that'll pop up. And an excellent breakdown on the Becton story there by you, Professor.
I hope he gets some attention. I hope he does. The media day,
definitely deserving.
It is a fantastic story.
Yeah, great. I mean, literally resurrected from the grave, this guy's career, and not just to the point where he's an efficient member of a very good offensive lineman. And the guy is like out there making statements, and the futility that you described that is experienced on most plays by offensive linemen, no matter how good they are at what they do, there's a pretty good chance that if somebody else fucked up, it's not going to matter. Very similar to the reason that we considered playing soccer in high school as punishment.
And again,
just futile running back and forth.
Doing it at a position where physically he's not ideally built for it. You do not see guys that tall playing offensive guard in the NFL, much less playing it at the level he's currently playing it.
Definitely a guy to watch there, and one of the reasons why my buddy Troy West loves the Eagles in this game. Professor, always a pleasure, man. We wandered through it in painless fashion. It was great. I'm sorry for the.
I don't know about painless. I'm about to pass out.
But we want everybody to go out there and enjoy your day. We didn't have the trivia challenge today. Obviously, we're making a few adjustments here on the fly, and. So for our trivia,
there will be no big board tomorrow. I know the people who enjoy that really enjoy it. Unfortunately, Lubie did not leave me with instructions on how to share screens with this particular setup.
No doubt he's difficult to get a hold of at this
point. We'll have we will be breaking down in a week from Friday. We will be breaking down all the stupidest props we can find on the Super Bowl,
beautiful,
which is an annual tradition.
I love that
for the big board.
And by the way, I woke up this morning, like I'd kind of fallen asleep, somewhere around 11 o'clock, wake up at 1 o'clock to that news of the American Eagle flight that crashed into a helicopter, an Army helicopter.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Wow. And they keep talking about they're searching for survivors. I don't see how anybody could have survived this. It landed in freezing waters in the Potomac there, right outside of the D.C. airport. And very sad. I mean, you had, I think, 4 people on the helicopter, the Black Hawk helicopter, and 64 people on the flight, including, and they haven't released any names yet, but supposedly, according to the Ledger, they had members of the U.S. figure skating team were on there. And I don't know, have they been identified yet? There hasn't really been a release of any names, obviously, since, they're still recovering bodies. But you would think you would know who was on the manifest. And so yeah, a sad story no matter who was involved, but that could be a story that also spreads itself into the sports sections as well. So all the best and condolences to those people. That's the one thing I don't fear is like getting involved in a plane crash for some reason.
Oh God, it's my worst fear.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if that's going to ratchet up the anxiety level of people that are flying, but
it would me. Like I'm not planning.
And they're landing too. You're finally feeling good, like okay, we got here, and then boom.
Well, that's what they say is something like 90% of all plane crashes are either first 5 or last 5 minutes of the flight.
Yeah, well, this was a very unfortunate circumstance and just a tragic search on for what was a catastrophic accident in the air there around Washington, D.C. All right, well, we're going to see you guys tomorrow. And thanks so much for tuning in, Professor. Another great job by you. I really appreciate it. And so we will see you tomorrow as well, we hope. And everybody out there, have a great day. It looks like it's going to be probably one of the nicest days in the history of South Florida. And looking forward to getting outside and doing some things there. So we'll see you next time as we leave you know that.
The time.
It's 9:05.
Oh, happy day.